I took the night shift because it paid cash and nobody bothered me after midnight. The place sat beyond the last left turn of town, past the freeway on-ramp and a tire yard that burned once and never stopped smelling like it. A low cinder block unit with a cracked neon sign. Spin City Coin Laundry, open 24. The sign buzzed even when the lights were off. The parking lot shared its asphalt with a shuttered nail salon and a payday lender. The ice machine out front worked only when the temperature stayed above 50. Inside, there were 8 top loaders along the left wall, 6 front loaders under the convex mirrors, and a row of dryers that rattled if you fed them quarters too fast. The floor was 12-inch squares, off-white, then a slate checker that hid lint, a candy machine that only vended peanuts, a soda machine that jammed on coins minted before 2001. In the office closet, a folding chair, a ledger with column lines faded to the color of tea, a stack of incident reports still shrink-wrapped, and a keyring labeled with masking tape and block letters. Main, change, back, roof. The change machine liked to spit dimes when the hopper got tired. The owner told me the rules once and printed them again on paper that curled at the corners. Lock the bathroom at dusk. Mop after 2. Don't chase anyone into the lot. If something happens, write the time and machine number. If you hear the carts move on their own, it's the slope in the slab. If you hear knocking from the walls, it's the pipes. If someone bangs on the back door, don't open it. Nothing at the back door is for us. My hours ran from 10:30 p.m. to 6 a.m. I swept lint off the dryer trays, shook the lint into a contractor bag, marked the bag with a date. I cleared coins from trap screens with a bent fork. I logged each wash card swipe against the camera time code, though 2 of the domes over the aisles were shells with nothing inside. The real camera that mattered was a box unit above the change machine. Its lens had a chip like a crater in glass. On slow nights, I listened to the steady belt noise of dryer 3. It had a pitch you could use to find time. 1 high ring every 40 seconds, a lower scrape on the minute. The first week I learned the smell sequence of the place. Detergent, warm metal, hot dust. Then the spill of bleach when someone poured with the cap still on. Then coins. Hands carry coin odor. When it got quiet enough, the building sat on the slab and told you its weight. I wrote that down in the margin of the ledger and crossed it out. They sent me to sleep in the office on breaks if I needed, but I stayed out in the open, on the folding table between the front loaders. I wanted the line of sight to the doors. The front door had a bell that chimed, even if you cracked it a finger's width. The back door dead-bolted into a frame that had been split and braced with a steel plate. The plate had 4 grinder burns like someone tested a wheel there and quit. On my 8th night, I logged a wash card at 11:47 p.m., machine F2. I wrote the last 2 digits from the card and matched them to the tape number. I remember the minute because the hum of dryer 3 missed its lower scrape. The belt caught and squealed, then settled. I went to the glass to check the lot. 1 car. No one in it. Sodium lights threw amber across the lot lines and bounced off a windshield with a temporary tag taped from the inside. I locked the bathroom, pocketed the key, and came back past the drink machine. The drink machine hummed against the cinder block like a throat. A wet trail showed itself across the tile. The slope in the slab pulled water toward the floor drain by the mop sink. The trail went the other way, a thin, reflective line from the entrance toward the vending corner. A coat hung on the rack by the door. Blue, long, cheap wool blend. And a second coat shape stood near the No Solvents sign with its back to the wall. Dark hair stuck to the shoulders the way hair lays when it's been under a hood in rain. The shoulders didn't move. I said nothing. I walked within 5 tiles and held out the lost and found bin. I kept my hand at the level where someone can see it without turning. I drew a breath to say, "Close in the restroom," then remembered the bathroom was already locked. The coat shape didn't shift. I opened the bin, checked the contents for anything sharp, and set it on the table. When I looked back, the shape wasn't where it had been. It wasn't gone. It had become a reflection in the convex mirror, a narrow figure between dryer 2 and the soda machine, facing the camera dome that didn't have a camera in it. I wrote the time, 11:53. I wrote the position, aisle by dryer 2. I wrote the action, stationary. When I moved, the reflection shortened. The convex warped the distance and made her look closer. I went 3 tiles toward the soda machine. She stepped into the gap behind the dryers where the conduit ran. There was room to stand if you angled your feet on the base plate. You couldn't go far without scraping your shoes and sending metal noises across the room. No scrape, only the soda machine's fan. I wrote, "Possible customer hiding from someone," then crossed it out. I wrote, "Vagrant," crossed that out too. The coat on the rack dripped into a spreading dot. I wiped it with a blue shop towel and placed the towel into a 6-gallon bucket with a lid. At midnight, I pulled the carts to the wall and nested them. Their wheels clicked over the expansion joint. The sound traveled into the back room and came back delayed. I shut the interior lights that faced the windows, so the glass wouldn't mirror the room for me and blind the lot. Outside looked deeper without the inside on. The neon sign buzzed harder when the fluorescence dropped. The first noise came at 12:14 a.m. Not knocking, a light fast friction, like a plastic sole across epoxy. Then a pause, then a single tick against aluminum. The sound mapped the baseboards and stopped at each door frame like fingers trailing walls in the dark. I stood behind the folding table with the ledger under my palm. The box camera above the changer blinked its red LED twice, paused, blinked once. It did that when it lost sync with the recorder. I wrote the blink pattern and the time. I kept the pen in my hand because it felt right to. The friction moved along the dryers, past the lint trap doors, pausing over each latch. The latches clicked in sequence, left to right, right to left, then stopped at dryer 3. There's a notch in dryer 3's door that bites the latch plate if the door sags. Something tugged the handle. The sag caught. No second tug. A breath line started inside my mask. I had been wearing one because lint makes the back of the throat raw by 2 a.m. I tasted the paper. I held it in my teeth to keep it from collapsing with each inhale. The soda machine compressor cut. The room flattened. Tiles cooled at ankle level. The change machine ticked. The tick wasn't coin. It was the tiny click a relay makes when power shifts from one leg to another. The friction slid past the soda machine and stopped under the dead dome camera. The dome was plastic, smoked. If you look up from the right angle, you can see your own face paraboled. I didn't look. A soft rasp came then, like someone twisting a cap with no threads. It lasted 9 seconds. I counted them against my pulse. I've done that since a warehouse job years back taught me that counting holds you inside the minute. The rasp ended with a small drop sound, plastic on tile, then a second rasp. 8 seconds, another drop. I wrote dome lenses, then underlined it. Movement took the line along the washers. Each coin slot tapped once. The taps matched the order of the machines in the ledger column, not the physical order on the floor. Whoever mapped the room knew the books. The taps ended near the mop sink door. A rubber edge met tile as if something leaned its weight on a squeegee. The back door deadbolt held the steel plate quiet. A fall of dust came from the conduit cut out over the sink and landed on my forearm in a scatter I could measure. I didn't brush it off. The air changed near the office closet without moving the paper tape there. You can notice air without feeling wind if the room is steady enough. My mask pulled in and stayed there. I didn't force it out. Dryer 3 made its low scrape. The scrape masked a separate click near my right ear, close enough the ear heard it before the eye placed it. It was the metallic tick of a thin tool touching a screw head inside the office closet door. The closet had 4 screws at eye level. One was stripped. I had stripped it last week, tightening the latch and wrote it down to replace. I had not replaced it. A tool tested the stripped one, slid, tested the lower right, caught, twisted, stopped. The stop was a choice, not a slip. The convex mirror held a sliver of the office door and a darker sliver of someone standing near it. Not tall, not short, shoulders narrow, hood up. I had logged one hooded person earlier that month. Blue zip, white letters, no incident. This one wore matte fabric that made no light. The shape didn't fill space. It avoided it. My pen left a line across the ledger when my hand shifted weight. The line crossed the entry for 1221 and the word tap. I let the pen stay where it landed. I could have said the thing people say when they want to change events with noise. I didn't. I breathed shallow until the mask pressed flat against my lip. The box camera blinked its red LED 3 times in a row. The soda machine kicked back in and rattled coins inside its own belly. The friction moved away. When I stepped later, the tiles under the dead dome reflected 2 circles on the floor, clear plastic halves face down. I picked one up with a towel and turned it over. The rim had tool marks, no cracks, removed, not broken. The second half had a smear that smelled like mechanic soap. I bagged both in a 1-gallon zip and wrote the time across the tape. 12:29. I kept the mask on until 2. Mopped the back hall, logged the mop water as gray heavy, logged the lint bag as full one. Tied it with yellow cord. At 3:05 a.m., a white Chevy with a missing rear plate rolled past and didn't turn in. At 4:12 a.m., a man walked a dog that refused the lot line and stopped dead at the curb. I wrote down the breed as best I could. Shepherd mix, brindle, harness, pink. The dog looked at the drain and backed away. The man pulled, then crossed the street without using the crosswalk. At 5:37 a.m., I unlocked the bathroom and wiped the mirror. The glass showed a fingerprint pattern across the lower corner like someone had pressed 2 knuckles and a thumb there while bracing to lean and look. The mirror sits too low for that height unless you kneel. I measured from the floor to the smudge line, 22 inches. I wiped it with ammonia and logged the ammonia. I checked the back door and found the steel plate warm along the grinder scars, as if someone had pressed an ear there. The warmth can be explained. The building holds heat. The plate faces the water heater through the wall. You can map heat if you do it long enough. At 5:59 a.m., I unlocked the front door, rang the bell once to test the chime, and set the A-frame sign outside. Sunrise special. $1.75 wash 6 to 8 a.m. A pickup idled by the curb, windows clouded. I carried the trash to the corral. The bag was lighter than a full night should make it. Fewer customers, less lint, less coin, fewer receipts. The sky went the color of an old t-shirt, and the freeway poured a steady band of noise over the roofline. When I came back in, the missing domes left the fake cameras open like sockets. I bagged the screws from the floor and labeled them with the date. At 6 a.m., the owner's son pulled up in a Civic with a cracked tail light, the left one. I showed him the bag with the domes, the ledger entries, and the time codes. He took the bag, looked up at the ceiling, and told me not to worry about it. He said he'd send someone to fix it around noon, then asked if anything else happened. I pointed at dryer 3 and said the belt scraped on the minute. He nodded like that was the item he wanted. He told me I could clock out early if I wanted, then reminded me the bathroom key had to go back on the hook. I logged the handoff at 6:07. I wrote the temperature from the cheap wall unit, because it gives people comfort to see numbers, 58 degrees Fahrenheit inside, rising. I wrote return to night and left the line open because the night didn't feel finished. I went out through the front and checked the lot line where the dog had stopped. There was a line of darker patches where tires had parked for years. In the middle of one patch, a small circle of clean concrete showed under where a coin roll had sat for a while and been picked up. The circle was still cool to the touch. I stood until one of the sodium lights buzzed brighter and then clicked off. I counted the decay of the filament hum. I came back at 10:30 p.m. with a new ledger pen, and the 2 plastic domes were already gone from the counter where I had left them bagged and taped. The dead housing stared down from their mounts. The box camera's red LED stayed dark. The change machine read, exact change only. Without a reason, the owner's son had not replaced anything. The back door still held. The grinder scars were cold. I logged no repair, underlined it, and set the carts 2 deep against the wall. The lot was empty, and the slope of the slab made the front wheels pull right if you didn't hold them straight. I marked the time and went to check dryer 3's belt. When I came back the next night, the air smelled different. Not detergent, not metal. A faint sweetness under the dust, like heated plastic or fruit gone soft in heat. I checked the waste bins. Nothing new, no spill, no food. The mop bucket still held yesterday's water, gray surface film unbroken. The clock above the door blinked 10:31 p.m., then froze. The second hand never moved again that shift. The owner's son hadn't replaced the domes or the camera board. He left a single note taped to the register. Don't plug the back outlet. It trips the main. There was no outlet on the back wall. Only conduit capped with electrical tape, warm to the touch. The warmth came and went in pulses, each about a breath long. I started the washers in rows, 1 through 4. Only number 3 filled slower than the rest, hiss uneven. Inside the drum, streaks ran in patterns, long arcs, diagonal smears that didn't match hand motion. It looked like something had dragged from inside out, not the other way. I sprayed cleaner, wiped, and watched new condensation form where the rag passed. Temperature differential, maybe. Still, I logged it. At 11:04 p.m., the first customer came in. A man in a red ball cap who dropped quarters, started 2 dryers, left before they cycled once. No car sound. I stepped outside. Empty lot. The bell above the door kept chiming long after the door had closed. Metal tongue swinging with no air movement. I held it still with one finger. When I let go, it swung once more, on its own. I wrote the time. At 11:26 p.m., the soda machine released a can without purchase. Root beer. It rolled halfway across the tile, stopped against the drain line, left a faint brown ring. I mopped it up, poured the rest out. The liquid ran clear halfway through the pour. Old stock does that sometimes. Still, I logged it. Between midnight and 1, the dryers hit an identical pitch shift. A low, harmonic-like air drawn through a throat. Then silence, collective and instant. Every drum coasted to a stop as if power had been cut, but the overhead tubes stayed bright. Breakers steady. Motors quiet. Inside Dryer 3's window, lint floated as if weightless. When the belt released, the lint fell flat, darkened, darker than the load should have left it. I used tongs to lift a piece. The center clumped wet, faintly red-brown, smelling of iron and soap. Rust, maybe. Water from the heater line, maybe. I sealed it in a sample bag and marked the tag, unknown residue. I ran water through the mop sink, let it drain. The sound didn't match pressure. Water entered fast, exited slow, gurgling through something not shaped for pipework. When the flow stopped, the basin exhaled. No bubble, just air leaving, carrying the same faint sweetness from earlier. I stood close enough to see a ripple form once, circular, like breath on water. It flattened when the light flickered. I shut the valve, tightened it twice, and stepped back. At 1:17 a.m., the box camera blinked red again, this time 3 long intervals. I noted it and checked the feed on the office monitor. The monitor displayed the lobby, empty, except for the row of dryers. Frame timestamp read 11:47 p.m., the same minute from the previous night's entry. I scrubbed forward. No change. Each frame copied itself. When I paused, a single frame jumped to a different angle, low, tilted up, as if the lens lay on the floor. Someone's leg entered the corner of view, bare below the knee, pale, the skin grainy like footage shot through water. Then static. I wrote, "Feed loop from missing dome." The building carried sound differently after that. The humming ballast in the ceiling sang higher, a single note that grew stronger near the back hall. When I followed it, I found Dryer 3 turning again. No coin light active, no timer display. The drum rotated once every 3 seconds, enough to pull lint from the trap slot and scatter it in a small circle on the floor. I opened the door mid-rotation. The drum stopped cleanly. Inside was nothing. Just one wet handprint on the metal wall, fingers spread wide, wrist angled downward. No soap trail, no source. I touched the mark with a rag. It felt colder than the rest of the drum by maybe 5 degrees. I kept the rag. At 2:02 a.m., the air units cycled off. In the silence, I could hear a wash timer clicking from the row by the window. Slow, deliberate, not the normal tick. Someone had rotated the knob backward against its ratchet. It clicked once every 10 seconds, each time returning to the same notch. The same timer had been replaced a week ago. I logged mechanical fault. I moved toward the front to check the lot. Through the window, condensation blurred the glass except for one clear streak near the middle, a vertical line from top to bottom. Outside, the street lamp cast only amber, but across that line, the light thinned, like looking through moving water. For a moment, I thought it was rain. Then I saw the streak was inside, not out, running down the pane exactly where a hand would slide if someone stood facing in. 5 parallel smears, fingertip to palm. Not greasy. Wet from inside. They dried in less than a minute. I wiped the pane. My reflection bent where the streak had been, split slightly at the center, showing 2 outlines for one face. When the tubes above me flickered, The second outline lingered half a second longer than the first. Not gone, just late. Delay on glass can happen if the ballast flashes at alternating frequency, but the hum had stopped minutes ago. I wrote nothing for that one. At 3:11 a.m., the light over dryer 3 cut out. The rest stayed steady. The same corner smelled again. Plastic, soap, copper. A mixture that doesn't belong to any cleaner we use. The drum door stood open now, and water pooled beneath it. Not much, enough to show the ceiling reflection. The ceiling reflection held a shape. Small, crouched, long hair bent forward, head to knees. Inside the reflection, not in the room. When I looked up, the tiles showed only their seams. When I looked down again, the water had stopped moving, though the ceiling vent still dripped once every 8 seconds, exact as a clock tick. That rhythm continued until dawn. I stayed on the folding table, writing every minute the drip repeated, counting seconds between drops, until 5:58 a.m., when the last one fell and spread into the wordless pattern that water makes when it covers something underneath it. The reflection flattened. I drew a line in the ledger to mark the end of that entry. When the owner's son arrived, I handed him the bag with a rag, the lint, and the print photo I'd pulled from the freeze frame. He didn't open any of it. He only asked if I'd mopped. I said yes. He nodded, set the bag aside, and said, "Don't lock the bathroom tonight. A plumber's coming." Then he left, and the doorbell rang after him 3 times, though he'd already driven off the lot. I logged the sound at 6:12 a.m., left the last line open again, and turned the page. When I came back the following night, the plumber never showed. The bathroom door was open, the light inside burned white through the cracked frame. The floor tiles near the drain were warped, pushed upward from underneath, like air had swelled the concrete. I stepped on one edge. Water rose through the grout, clear at first, then faint gray, carrying small lint threads. It smelled faintly of bleach and something metallic, as if the pipe had been dry too long before it was forced to work again. The owner's son hadn't returned my sample bag. He left a new note taped to the register. "Do not close early. Inspector may drop by. No signature, no initials. Same handwriting as before." I logged it and wrote down the water condition. It was 10:34 p.m. The air vents hummed weaker than usual. From the back corridor, the hum carried a rhythm, 2 short bursts, 1 long. It matched nothing mechanical. I followed it to the water heater room. The door was ajar, even though the padlock hung through the latch. No forced marks. Inside, the heater casing dripped, and along its side someone had written numbers in soap residue. 12, 47, 3. The digits lined vertically, wiped through condensation like fingernail width, the same width as the print I found last shift. I took a photo with my phone, but the photo file later showed the digits reversed, as if taken in a mirror. I cleaned the residue, logged the note, and turned off the light. The hum stopped the moment the bulb cooled. When I stepped back into the main room, the sound changed. A low hum again, from dryer 3. The belt wasn't running, but the door had closed on its own. The latch clicked softly, then held. At 11:10 p.m., the CCTV monitor turned itself on, the same feed loop as before. Timestamp 11:47 p.m. This time the view widened. The reflection of the back hall appeared faintly in the dryer window, and in that reflection something hung down. A strand of hair, wet, stuck against the inner glass. I checked the drum. Nothing inside. I touched the glass with a glove. It came away damp, smelling faintly of citrus detergent and something older. Skin lotion or soap that isn't sold anymore. The ledger page caught one drop that fell from my glove. It spread in the shape of an oval, then divided down the center. As it dried, the stain outlined 5 small arcs, like half-moons pressed close together. Finger pattern. I turned the page and kept writing. At 12:05 a.m., I checked the waste bins. The one near the folding table had lint packed too tight for a single shift. I loosened it with a brush handle. Underneath the lint, folded once, was a strip of pale fabric, cotton, torn at the edge, stitched once with dark thread, then broken. I pulled it free. It had the same smell as the Dryer 3 drum: iron, soap, heat. A small plastic tag clung to the corner. The tag read, "Property of Spin City Uniform Services." The lettering was old. The plastic yellowed. We didn't use that name anymore. The owner's son had said once his father bought the place after an incident with the old staff. He hadn't said what. I looked through the ledger archive under the counter. The earliest book was dated 10 years back. On the first page, an entry written in the same blue ink repeated 3 lines. Dryer 3, maintenance hold, do not use. Dryer 3, maintenance hold, do not use Dryer 3. Maintenance hold, do not use each line signed by initials I didn't recognize. A.L. At 12:42 a.m., power dipped once, and the change machine printed a small thermal receipt. It had no purchase data, only one line. A.L. Shift 12/47, missing. The paper smelled like burnt sugar and oil. I held it until the ink turned gray in my fingers. The vents started again. This time they exhaled steady heat, but from the duct above Dryer 3 came a faint whistling, like air passing through fabric. Not words, just tone. Every 30 seconds it paused, then resumed, matching the time code from the tape. 11:47 repeating on loop. I opened the vent hatch with a screwdriver. Inside, the metal looked clean except for a single thread of blue cloth caught on a screw head, frayed at both ends. When I tugged, it disintegrated into dust. At 2:18 a.m., the soda machine ejected another can. Root beer again, room temperature, no payment. It rolled halfway, stopped at the same drain spot. This time the liquid inside sounded half full, sloshing slower, as if something solid moved with it. I didn't open it. I placed it on the counter beside the register. Condensation formed only on the top half of the can, not the bottom. Around 3 a.m., the front window began fogging in narrow columns, as though a hand pressed from the outside, dragging upward. Each streak stopped at head height, then vanished as the fog spread to fill the glass again. From outside, headlights passed once, and for an instant the streaks shone brighter. Not white, but faintly pink, like diluted blood under film light. The color vanished before I could blink again. I wrote, condensation pattern repeated, external pressure uncertain. The mop sink gurgled once more around 3:40 a.m. I walked back to check the flow. The faucet was closed, but the drain was breathing, air moving in and out like lungs. Each exhale carried the faint scent of burned fabric. When I leaned closer, I heard a sound that didn't belong to plumbing, a slow rhythm, 3 syllables formed not by voice, but by vibration through metal. Stay in line. The same words printed on every machine decal in the shop. It repeated once, then silence. I wrote the time, 3:42. Under the entry, I added a note. Sound identical to vent pulse. I didn't cross it out. At 5:09 a.m., the building lights flickered once. All machines powered down together, except dryer 3. Its timer blinked once and settled at 11:47. When the minute froze, the reflection in the drum glass shifted slightly. A figure sitting cross-legged inside the reflection only, face downward, hands resting on metal that wasn't visible in the room. The reflection stayed until the power returned. Then both image and time cleared at once. I wrote nothing else. When dawn came, the sun hit the glass door at an angle that turned the lint floating in air into small motes of red light. They rose, held for a second, and disappeared near the ceiling vent. I swept the floor 3 times and left the lights off. Before I locked up, I looked once more at the ledger, where the page had curled at the corner from the damp. The last line I'd written, the one after sound identical to vent pulse, had changed slightly. The letters A and L had smeared, as if the ink had been touched by a wet fingertip from the inside of the page. I closed the book, set it beneath the counter, and listened to the low hum from dryer 3 continue 3 more seconds after the power cut. Then it stopped. When I unlocked the door the next night, a new clipboard hung on the wall. Safety inspection checklist. The paper was blank except for the date field. 11/47. Not a real date. I left it there and logged the anomaly. The air inside felt heavier. The detergent smell had flattened, replaced by something closer to steam that never cooled. The soda machine was unplugged. Someone had moved it 6 inches forward, leaving a black shadow mark on the tile, like soot rubbed into grout. I started the standard routine. Test dryers, mop the corridor, run water through the sink. Dryer 3's belt squealed on the first rotation. New noise. I wrote belt tension low and leaned in to check alignment. Between the drum and frame, a thread of blue cloth wound around the spindle, tight enough to groove the metal. I tried to cut it loose, but the cloth resisted. Fibers hardened like wire. When it finally broke, it left a thin dust that smelled faintly of perfume, not detergent. The scent clung to my gloves. At 10:58 p.m., the main lights flickered once, and the front door chime rang, though no air moved. The register display blinked awake, showing AL shift in progress. The cash drawer slid open an inch and stopped. Inside lay a folded work tag. Spin City, employee number 12. The fabric edges were melted, as if the tag had been ironed onto something that caught fire. I left it there. The vents carried a new rhythm. Long pause, short burst, pause. When I followed it to the heater room, the soap-written numbers from last night had reappeared, rewritten in condensation. 12:47:3. Below them, faint streaks curved downward, like someone wiped tears through the fog. The heater ticked once every 5 seconds, matching the dryer 3 rotation rate. At 11:47 exactly, the CCTV monitor powered itself again. This time, the feed wasn't the lobby. It showed the service hallway behind the dryers, a view no existing camera could reach. The picture pulsed, then steadied. A figure kneeled by the drain, hair hanging forward, hands braced on tile that shimmered as though underwater. No face, no motion, just the same slow rotation as a dryer drum. When I paused the frame, the timestamp glowed white until the screen dimmed. I printed one still. The printer spat a receipt line beneath it. Incident recorded AL termination 0312. The word termination looked typed by machine, not printed. I shut the monitor, logged the event, and stepped to the sink. The drain exhaled once. The exhale fogged my glasses with moisture that smelled like metal and soap. The fog settled on the ledger page and formed small circles, 5 of them, before vanishing. At 1:02 a.m., I checked outside. No cars, no light except the freeway lamps. When I came back, every washer lid stood open. No one else had keys. I closed them one by one, listening for the latch click. Each lid shut except the third. It bounced halfway, as if something inside pushed back. I lifted it. The basin was dry. A single coin lay flat on the bottom. Dime. Minted 2012. The year the old incident had happened, according to the city record I found later. By 2:14 a.m., the vents stopped again. Static filled the room from no source. When it cleared, the heater pilot relit itself, flame too tall, hissing. The temperature rose 6 degrees in under a minute. On the inner wall, heat bloom revealed shapes where soot hadn't settled evenly. An outline of a shoulder, part of a cheek. Hair draped downward as if someone had leaned there long ago. When the heater clicked off, the outline stayed for a full minute before fading into the uniform gray. I sat at the folding table and opened the ledger. Yesterday's ink smear had expanded, covering the initials AL until they were unreadable. The page felt damp underneath, but the air around me was dry. I turned one page back. Entries had changed alignment. Timestamps compressed together, all pointing toward 11:47 p.m. like a column of gravity. At 3:09 a.m., the front glass clouded again. This time the condensation formed letters. Check filter dryer 3's lint tray lay open. Inside, compacted fibers formed a solid mat, gray with dark streaks. I pulled the layer free. Underneath was something heavier. A single gold earring stud, small. The clasp burned away. I placed it in a specimen bag and sealed it. When I labeled it, the marker wouldn't write on the tape. Ink refused to adhere, beading on the surface. I used a pencil instead. By 4 a.m., the noise stopped altogether. The building settled, as if listening. I checked each machine, door, and vent, then turned off the lights one row at a time. In the dark, the exit sign glowed faint red. The reflection in dryer 3's glass glowed the same shade, but slightly off-center, like a second light source hidden inside. I watched until the red dimmed. At 5:47 a.m., the sun touched the front door. The glass showed every streak, every fingerprint. One print stood out. A right hand, smaller than mine, pressed high on the frame, fingers upward. Each ridge perfectly clean, as though made by something without skin. I wiped it once. The pattern came back. I wiped again. Gone. When I closed the ledger that morning, the last line I had written, "Gold earring found in dryer filter," had bled faint red through the page, marking the next blank sheet with the outline of the words. I didn't cross it out. I left the pen there, ink still wet, and listened as dryer 3 gave one final turn on its own, slow, deliberate, like breathing through metal lungs. Then silence. The ledger was missing when I opened the office door. The desk drawer lay empty except for a spare pen and a damp crease where paper used to be. I checked the security shelf. No prints, no dust rings, nothing. The owner said he'd never issued an inspection log under my ID. He showed the computer register. No shift after November 14th. The video feeds were archived up to 11:46 p.m., then cut clean, as if someone had deleted a single minute of time and stitched the ends together. Behind the counter, dryer 3 was tagged out of order. Someone had taped over the coin slot with brown packing tape. Through the glass, I saw nothing but my own reflection and a thin film of moisture turning slowly in circles. When I touched the door, the metal was warm like skin held to a light bulb. The heater room smelled of soap and ozone. Condensation had drawn a single line down the mirror panel, ending in 3 letters etched by finger. A.L. I took a photo for record. The flash didn't reflect. At 11:46 p.m., the alarm panel clicked on its own. A single red light flashed above the exit. It wasn't the fire alarm, just a test indicator cycling once every 5 seconds, same as the dryer rotation rate. I sat on the folding table and waited for the heater to shut off. The fan stopped at 11:47 exactly. In the silence, water dripped from somewhere inside the ducts, each drop landing with the regularity of a clock. I opened the front door for air. Cold fog spilled in from the parking lot, laying low across the tile. When I turned back, the fog had settled into a wet outline on the floor. A human shape, curled as if asleep. It faded by the time I reached it, leaving only a ring of water around the drain. The CCTV monitor clicked on one last time. No feed number, no date. Just the inside of dryer 3, the drum spinning empty, then stopping on its own. For 3 seconds, the screen filled with a white pulse, then black. When the image cleared, a cursor blinked over a single line of text. Log closed, 11:47 p.m. Series file corrupted. The cursor stopped blinking after 7 beats. No signal followed. I shut off the breaker and locked the door. Outside, the neon sign still flickered open 24 hours, but the interior was dark. In the glass reflection, dryer 3's indicator light was still on. A faint red dot blinking once every 5 seconds, same rhythm, same time. Are the places we visit every day truly safe? That's all for today's story. Don't forget to like and subscribe.